Arif was born in 1974 while Farman Ali was born in 1977. The two were born in the village of Darya Khan and were the sons of a small landowner named Khalil Ahmed. While Farman Ali claimed that his father murdered his mother while he was young, according to the villagers, the truth of the matter was that she died either of consumption or during complications with pregnancy. Not long after their mother's death, an influential feudal lord forcibly occupied their agricultural land, which caused the family to go hungry. This upset their father greatly and led to him taking it out on his two sons, beating or, as Farman Ali put it, torturing them. Arif was mentally challenged since childhood, while Farman Ali was described as very shy and often stayed away from social events, which continued into adulthood. Due to their land being occupied and a lack of food, the brothers first resorted to eating leaves and grass to get by. Whenever they asked for food, their father would beat the two of them and even forcibly starve them as punishment. The grass and leaves the two would eat weren't enough. So without their father's knowledge, the two children would resort to eating whatever dead animals and sometimes dead babies they were able to find. Due to the environment they grew up in, the animal carcasses and infant corpses were not in short supply. The two were married and even had children, with Arif having one child and Farman Ali having 5 children. But sometime before they dug up their first corpse, both their wives divorced the two and moved away, taking their children with them. The two believed their wives were eloping with other men, and according to the police, they started eating corpses to, in their own way, gain manhood. The police tracked down their wives, and they told police that they left their husbands because they didn't work, beat them, and locked them inside the house when the two brothers went outside, often at odd hours. But when Arif finally confessed, he told police about a different motive for their cannibalism. He claimed he visited a black magician or occultist who advised him to eat the remains of dead living things for good fortune and a good future for his children. This is partially supported, as the police received a lead stating that the brothers were in contact with a man suspected to be a sorcerer and who was caught trying to steal a body from a grave years earlier, although this individual was never found. Farman Ali also admitted to writing verses of the Quran in reverse in order to cast a spell on his neighbors. Some of the villagers gave up eating meat, while people frantically rushed over to their relatives' graves to make sure they were still buried. Some families resorted to having cement poured over the grave sites to keep them sealed shut. There were also speculations that Farman Ali was lying about having only been cannibalizing dead bodies since September, and instead, many believed they had been doing this for a decade. And despite villagers expressing shock at what the brothers did, it was also believed that more people knew than they let on. On April 2, 2011, the family of 24-year-old Saira Perveen held a funeral for her, as her life was tragically cut short due to throat cancer. She was buried at a cemetery in Darya Khan, a remote desert village in Pakistan's Punjab province. The next day, on April 3rd, her family returned to the cemetery to visit her grave when they noticed something odd. The soil looked slightly different, like it had been pressed in. And when they opened up her grave, they discovered that her body had gone missing only 1 day after having been buried. Due to superstitions, they initially believed that her body had been stolen for a black magic ritual, and Saira's brother, Ijaz Hussain, called all of his relatives, politically influential people in the village, and filed a complaint with the police. Several people, alongside police, arrived at the cemetery, and the police questioned the 67-year-old caretaker of the cemetery named Ghulam Hussain Balak. Ghulam told the police that he had seen 2 men who he identified as brothers named Mohammed Arif, age 37, and Mohammed Farman Ali, age 34, go to the cemetery, often holding shovels and bags. When they entered, Arif was sleeping in his room, and while his brother was absent, his father and severely mentally unstable and physically disabled sister were home with him. After a brief search of the home, the police asked for a key to Farman Ali's room. Once the key was given to them and they entered his room, they were hit by the smell of stale cooking and dead flesh. In the middle of his room was a pot with meat curry in it, and nearby was a wooden board, a butcher's axe, and a large kitchen knife with bits of fat on the board and axe. The food had attracted ants, and the police noticed that the line of ants vanished under Farman Ali's bed. So, the police reached under the bed and removed some bags of fertilizer, and behind them was a gunny bag. The police retrieved the bag, and when they opened it, they discovered Sarah's body with her legs missing. One leg was severed from below the knee, while the other was near the shin. The police had the curry examined by a lab in Multan, which revealed that the curry was made from Sarah's remains. The police continued searching their home, and in the backyard of their home, the police recovered several bone fragments and a small skull belonging to a dog. The police also recovered several pieces of digging equipment from the home, and a few coffins were found as well. The police also exhumed some more human bones, which were all identified as previously deceased persons, and returned to their graves and reburied. Farman Ali was arrested a day later. Farman Ali confessed and claimed that he had removed 5 corpses from the local cemetery for the purposes of consumption, having exhumed his first corpse in September 2010. He claims that 4 of the bodies were those of children and one of an older woman, all of which he boiled their flesh and put it to storage and ate it whenever he was hungry. Arif, meanwhile, confessed to having knowledge of his brother's actions, but vehemently denied being complicit in them and further denied being a cannibal, which Farman Ali disagreed with and told police. "I often found some flesh I had stored missing. I believe Arif was consuming it." Farman Ali was known to suffer from mental illness, while Arif was a heroin addict. Their mentally unstable sister and aunt were also arrested, but later released after it was determined that they were uninvolved. A few days later, their sister was found drowned in a canal. The local populace was outraged by the incident, and as some publicly stated that they wanted to lynch the brothers, they were placed in a special maximum security cell alone while police continued their investigations. The main question they had to answer was why. This is what Farman Ali had to say. "My father killed my mother during my childhood. He also tortured me a lot. These are the reasons why I consume human flesh." But there was a bit more to it than that, as the police would find out after looking into the brothers' background. According to insiders, 6 months before their arrest, the grave of a child had been opened, and the Baradari members and local elders covered up the event. The same insider who revealed this information also explained that Farman Ali would publicly brandish a knife and tell everyone that he had links to influential people. Although none of the information alleging cannibalism to be well known has ever been confirmed. Although, according to one clan member who lived in a city, people would accost him on the street to call him an eater of human flesh. And he told the media that he had wished nobody ever found out about the brothers' actions. Even more shocking than their crimes was how the most egregious acts committed by the two weren't illegal. Pakistan had no laws against cannibalism, so the two were only charged with trespassing, desecrating a corpse, and desecrating a grave. Essentially, despite everyone finding their actions abhorrent, the police were treating them as petty criminals. Although many lawyers who heard of the case wanted the two examined by a psychiatrist, the police refused to invite any, and argued that they behaved normally while locked up in their cells, and that the investigation was complete. The two brothers' appointed lawyer also said, "They are not insane, they are just fools." Later that same year, a court convicted them on the charges and sentenced both brothers to 2 years imprisonment. The two served their sentence and were released in May 2013, and when the residents of Darya Khan found out about their release in June, they were not happy. In protest, residents set numerous tires on fire on a major highway in the area. blocking traffic for several hours, and publicly threatened to lynch the brothers, prompting the police to take them into protective custody, where they stayed living a quiet life away from everyone else. On August 3, 2013, a BBC reporter tracked down Arif for an interview. Before finding him, he spoke to the brothers' uncle, who had this to say: "Interview the corpse eaters? They didn't eat corpses. They are just the victims of their neighbor's jealousy." Arif, when interviewed, was more concerned with his personal safety than talking about his actions, and could barely answer any of the questions coherently. But he did tell the reporter that he had hoped that such an incident would not happen again, and told the reporter, "Everything will be all right, God willing." Arif's hopes were misplaced, as on April 14, 2014, residents reported a foul odor to the police coming from the brothers' home. Knowing their history, the police did not take these reports lightly and raided the home. Once inside, they arrested Arif and found a human skull belonging to a male child aged around 2 to 3 years old, who had died long before the raid. Just like last time, Farman Ali was missing, so the police conducted several raids across the local area until tracking him down and arrested him. Just like last time, Farman Ali confessed, while Arif denied helping his brother, and denied eating the child, and only confessed to knowing about Farman Ali dismembering and cooking him into curry. The police are confident that the child had died at some point prior and was removed from his resting place, although his grave was never found, and his identity remains undetermined. The skull was all that was left before the rest of the body had been eaten, and it's unknown where they disposed of the rest of the bones. The police examined every grave in the area to see if they had been disturbed, and the police stated that they had likely desecrated and eaten hundreds of bodies. By 2014, cannibalism was still not outlawed in Pakistan, so again the brothers could only be charged with trespassing and desecrating a corpse and grave. The prosecutor, however, wanted to ensure a harsher sentence this time around and charged them under Pakistan's anti-terrorism laws. The prosecutor argued that the smell coming from their home, combined with their prior history, had spread fear among the residents, and was thus an act of terrorism. This argument was accepted, and the two brothers were tried by an anti-terrorism court in Sargodha. On June 11, 2014, the court convicted the two brothers and sentenced them to 12 years imprisonment as well as a fine of 700,000 Pakistani rupees. In his closing remarks, the judge recommended that Pakistan formally ban cannibalism. In October 2014, Pakistani lawmakers finally drafted an amendment to Pakistan's criminal code, which would formally outlaw cannibalism with a maximum punishment of 10 years, although the law failed to pass. The two were granted early release in 2020, given to the care of their uncle and another brother, with very little media attention given to it, and the police refusing to inform the public. Arif passed away from illness a short while later, while Farman Ali was the subject of another investigation as a formal complaint was filed against him on April 20th, 2022, when he was spotted in the local graveyard burning copies of the Quran. His current whereabouts are unknown to the public, although the police do have his location.